Week, the former Justice Secretary, who oversaw the courts during the pandemic, has called for an amnesty for COVID rule breakers. Sir Robert Buckland said that people who ended up with criminal records should now have their slates wiped clean rather than risk their career prospects being hampered by convictions handed out during what he referred to as an exceptional time. Now, his call was echoed this week by former Supreme Court Judge Lord Sumption, who described the criminalisation of more than 29,000 people for breaches of rules during the pandemic as ridiculous and a miscarriage of justice. But should the courts be doing a U-turn on legislation that was set up to save lives? Today, we're asking, is it time to forgive COVID rule breakers? And joining me to discuss this, we have Penelope Gibbs from Transform Justice, an organisation that works towards a fairer justice system, and lawyer Nick Freeman. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Penelope, I suppose the first question really is the fact that rules are set up for a reason. And I know that these were exceptional circumstances, but there will be people who are watching this who think if the slate is simply wiped clean, what's the message that that's putting out there?
Well, of course, laws should be obeyed, and they were important. And I was a magistrate myself for 3 years, so I presided over punishing people for not abiding by laws. So I believe in it. But these particular laws were set in place at a time of great difficulty, but they were rushed through. They were very badly drafted. They changed the whole time, and people found it incredibly difficult to understand them. So I feel even the police really often didn't understand the latest iteration, whether it was guidance or the law, and they apprehended sometimes the wrong people. So the law was badly drafted, but also the people who did transgress the law, they shouldn't have done, but many were young. And, you know, was it willful? I rather doubt it. Should they have what is an equivalent to a life sentence, which is what a criminal record is, for making a stupid mistake?
Nick, would you agree with that idea, mind you, that you know, that these were unprecedented times? People were very confused by the laws at that time. We're talking about nearly 30,000 people. Should they therefore have a criminal conviction for the rest of their life?
Well, I agree. It was a national emergency. I think nearly 250,000 people died. I think there are very pressing reasons why these laws should have been obeyed. There was something like 25 million people who actually caught COVID. So I would actually argue the reverse and say, you know, in the times of a national emergency, we obviously always need to respect the rule of law. And I think Penny and I agree about that. But more so in these circumstances than ever. And what we're suggesting here is a sort of Prime Minister's pardon, which I've never really heard of, for people who have admitted their guilt, who have broken the law and are now saying, well, there were exceptional circumstances, I wasn't clear, etc., etc. It lays down a very dangerous precedent, in my view. But from a legal perspective, can I say this? These people are not convicted. They don't have a criminal record. The vast majority of cases were actually dealt with by way of a fixed penalty. That isn't a conviction. It's not a caution. It's not on their record. So it doesn't cause them any problems at all in their life.
Okay,
and those people who, can I just say this? Those people who actually went to court, they were fined. Their convictions are spent within 12 months under the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. So there is no adverse impact on any of this sort of stuff that happened in relation to the people we're talking about.
Penelope, is that true? There's no adverse impact to the people that we're talking about here?
There's always an adverse impact with having a criminal conviction. And there are 3,000 people on what's called the Police National Computer who have a criminal record for a COVID offence. So the fixed penalties, which were the ones given out where you paid under £100, those didn't have a criminal record. But if people didn't pay those for whatever reason, they might not have, you know, had the money or whatever, they were prosecuted. And the people who, and so some people got convictions. They're separate from the people who got fixed penalties. And convictions carry with them the chance that the police will reveal, disclose that offence when you're going for a job or even a volunteer opportunity. So if you want to volunteer at your children's school, you have to go for what's called a enhanced DBS, and these things can be disclosed.
Nick, with that in mind, you know, the people that we're talking about here, it's having an impact on their futures, particularly young people.
Well, if you're fined, as I say, it's spent after 12 months. There's a tiny percentage of people who didn't pay the fine.
Those who ended up in the criminal court
So we're
and
talking
the justice system?
Their criminal conviction, such as it is spent after 12 months because they were fined. So it will not appear
for
on
an
a
enhanced DBS check, Nick. For an enhanced DBS check, the police can give any information that's available to them on the PNC or on their local system.
What I'm getting here, Nick, is there is a sense of confusion.
Can I say, if you are arrested for an offence, the police will have intelligence on their records that they can pass on. If they do, they're in breach of data protection. It doesn't even need to be a conviction. It can be something you're completely innocent of. They will retain that evidence. But if they unlawfully, in breach of data protection, pass it on to a prospective employer, then they are in breach. They are then breaking the law. They have the problem. The sort of convictions for COVID, the 3,000, will not appear on an enhanced DBS check.
OK, so moving away from the legal side of it, and like I say, I think that there is a level of confusion. There seems to be different rules have applied to different people, and people have had a different impact on their lives. The one thing that is consistent, though, Penelope, there'll be people who are watching this at home who've lost people. Thousands died. It's not a victimless crime, so they will feel that people should be punished.
The people were punished, and I'm not saying that their original fines should be kind of paid back or anything like that. I'm talking about the criminal records aspect and differ a bit with Nick as to what the implications are of that. So obviously nobody should have done wrong. And most people actually tried really hard to abide by the rules. I myself couldn't see my mother in her care home for many, many months. But just because I couldn't see her in the care home and her dementia, in fact, got worse in that time, I still feel that people who made stupid mistakes, maybe not understanding the actual complexity of the law, should not be punished for their whole life and should not have it hanging over them. I have to say, even for this programme, I was asked whether I had any criminal conviction whatsoever and had to tick a box to say I haven't. So criminal convictions can affect whether I come on this programme, travel, employment, housing, all kinds of things.
I'm afraid we will have to leave it there. Nick, Penelope, thank you so much for your time here this morning.